My father came back 18 years after abandoning us, and before he asked whether his children were alive, happy, broken, or healed, he asked what percentage of my grandmother's house belonged to him. I was 25 when I saw him standing on the front porch in Columbus, Ohio, under the same yellow porch light my grandmother used to leave on for me when I worked late at the legal aid office. He wore a navy coat that looked expensive from a distance but shiny at the elbows up close. His hair was thinner than I remembered. His smile was rehearsed, like he had practiced at it in a car mirror before walking up the steps. Behind me, my younger brother Noah sat at the dining room table with anatomy flashcards spread around a cold mug of coffee. Hugh was 21, in his first year of medical school, exhausted enough to fall asleep with his eyes open. When he looked up and saw the man in the doorway, he did not say, "Dad." Neither did I. That word had dried up in our mouths a long time ago. My name is Emma Whitaker. My mother, Sarah, died on a rainy Friday night in March when I was 7 and Noah was 3. A truck hydroplaned on I-71 outside Cincinnati and crossed the median. The state trooper told my grandmother the impact was instant, as if that was supposed to be a gift. Maybe it was. Maybe the only mercy in that night was that my mother never knew she was leaving us. I remember small pieces, not the whole thing. The principal walking into my second grade classroom with her hands folded too tightly. A secretary giving me a juice box I did not ask for. My grandmother Ruth arriving with mascara streaked down both cheeks and Noah asleep on her shoulder in his dinosaur pajamas because no one had known what else to dress him in. I remember the funeral home smelling like lilies and coffee. I remember adults bending down to me, touching my hair, saying, "Poor baby," like I had become something fragile and pitiful overnight. But losing my mother was not the end of me childhood. The real ending came 3 months later. I woke up to the sound of suitcase wheels bumping down the hallway of our apartment. At first, I thought we were going somewhere. Maybe my father was taking us to Grandma Ruth's. Maybe he was finally done sleeping on the couch and staring through the TV while Noah cried for Mom. I climbed out of bed and stood barefoot in the hallway. My father, Richard Whitaker, was by the door with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. He had shaved. He had put on cologne. He looked less like a grieving husband than a man late for a flight. "Go back to bed, Em," he said. "Where are you going?" He did not answer. I looked at the bags, then at the framed picture of my mother still sitting on the entry table with a black ribbon tied around it. "Are we coming?" His face changed for half a second. Not sadness exactly. Irritation, maybe. Shame dressed up as impatience. "Your grandmother will be here tomorrow," he said. "She's going to help with you and Noah." "For how long?" He bent down, but he did not hug me. He put one hand on my shoulder like I was a neighbor's child he had to comfort in public. "Be good for your brother." Then he opened the door. I remember the hallway light behind him. I remember the elevator ding. I remember standing there long after the door closed, waiting for him to turn around because fathers were supposed to turn around. He did not. Grandma Ruth arrived the next morning with 1 suitcase, 3 grocery bags, and a rage so deep she could barely speak without shaking. She was 62. She had just buried her only daughter. She should have been sitting in a dark room with people bringing her casseroles and sympathy cards. Instead, she picked up Noah, wiped his nose with the sleeve of her sweater, and told me to pack my school things. "Are we going to Dad?" I asked. She stopped moving. "No, baby." "Is he sick?" Her mouth trembled, but her voice did not. "No. He is a coward." That was the first honest thing anyone had said to me since my mother died. Grandma sold her little condo outside Cincinnati, used the money for a down payment on an old house in Columbus, and moved us into it before summer ended. It was not fancy. The stairs creaked. The kitchen cabinet stuck in humid weather. The roof needed patching every other storm. But it had a fenced backyard, a school within walking distance, and a dining room big enough for homework, bills, birthday cakes, flu medicine, and every emergency that followed. Richard sent child support for 6 months. Then half. Then nothing. Grandma hired a family attorney who worked out of a strip mall between a tax office and a nail salon. She filed papers, made calls, mailed certified letters, went to hearings, and came home with a folder full of promises the court made but life did not enforce fast enough. Richard changed addresses. Switched jobs. Worked under the table. Ignored notices. Once, he mailed a check for $84 and wrote, "Doing my best," on the memo line. Grandma stared at that check for a long time. Then she taped it inside a blue binder. "Why are you keeping it?" I asked. She looked at me over her reading glasses, "Because one day, sweetheart, people tell stories about themselves. Paper tells the truth." That was Grandma Ruth. She kept everything. Receipts for school shoes. Medical bills. Copies of report cards. Letters returned unopened. Child support orders, insurance statements. Grocery lists. Notes from teachers. Birthday cards Richard never sent. The binder grew thicker every year, and with it, my understanding that love was not always soft. Sometimes love was documentation. She became everything. Grandmother, mother, father, nurse, cook, tutor, judge, jury, and warm blanket. She worked part-time at the public library until her knees got bad, then repaired clothes for people from church, then watched other people's kids after school. She made soup stretch 3 dinners. She cut coupons with the seriousness of a surgeon. She knew how to turn a $5 rotisserie chicken into soup, sandwiches, and fried rice. We never had much, but we never went without what mattered. Noah always had asthma inhalers. I always had books. Our shoes might have come from clearance racks, but they fit. Our coats might have been bought in April for the next winter, but they were warm. When fever came, Grandma sat beside the bed with a cool cloth. When nightmares came, she let Noah crawl under her quilt. When report cards came, she put them on the refrigerator like museum pieces. At 10, I asked why my father did not call. Grandma was washing dishes. Her hands paused under the running water. Because some people run from what they owe, she said. Did we do something? She turned off the faucet, dried her hands, and knelt in front of me even though her knees cracked. Listen to me, Emma. Adults make choices. Children are not responsible for those choices. Your father leaving says something about him. It says nothing about you. I nodded like I believed her. I did not believe her for years. Children always think abandonment is a mirror. If someone leaves you, some secret part of you assumes you were not worth staying for. I became a straight A student not because I loved school at first, but because every gold star felt like evidence. See? I am good. See? I am worth something. See? You were wrong to leave. Noah was different. He barely remembered Richard. To him, Grandma Ruth was the center of the world. He called her Mom once when he was 5 and had a fever. She froze, then gathered him up like he was made of glass. She never corrected him. After that, sometimes he called her Grandma, sometimes Ruthie, sometimes Mom when he was half asleep. She answered to all of it. When I graduated high school with a scholarship to Ohio State, Grandma cried so hard in the auditorium that the woman beside her handed over tissues. Noah, then 14, recorded it on his phone and whispered, "She's acting like you won the Super Bowl." Grandma heard him. She did, she said. At 18, I left for college but came home every weekend. I studied political science, then went to law school because I had learned early that being right did not matter if you could not prove it. While my classmates talked about corporate internships and summer associateships, I spent my free time at family court, watching exhausted women try to explain unpaid support, missing paychecks, and men who somehow became invisible the moment responsibility knocked. I understood those women before they opened their mouths. Noah followed a different road. He wanted to be a doctor because Grandma's blood pressure scared him when he was 12. He would sit at the kitchen table with a plastic drugstore cuff, wrapping it around her arm like a tiny nurse. "You need less salt, Ruthie," he'd say. "I need less bossing from someone who still thinks cereal is dinner," she'd reply. He studied harder than anyone I knew. He worked weekends at a pharmacy, volunteered at a hospital, and still came home every Sunday night to take the trash cans to the curb because Grandma pretended she could still do it and we pretended to believe her until he got there. By the time I passed the bar, Grandma was 80. She had grown smaller, but not weaker. Her hair was silver, her hands were knotted with arthritis, and she still scared telemarketers into apologizing. She came to my swearing-in ceremony wearing a pale blue dress she had owned since before I was born. When I signed my name as an attorney for the first time, she whispered, "Your mother would be making such a scene right now." "Like you're not?" "I am making a dignified scene." Noah took pictures of us on the courthouse steps. In one, Grandma is between us, one arm around each of our waists, smiling like she had dragged 2 children through hell and delivered them to the other side by force. She died 11 months later. It was a Thursday in October. She fell asleep in her recliner after dinner while a baking show played on TV. Noah found her when he came downstairs to ask if she wanted tea. The doctor said it was her heart. Fast. Peaceful. No suffering. People kept telling us that like it was supposed to make the silence in the house easier. It did not. The house became enormous without her. Every room held proof of her. Her cardigan on the hook by the back door. Her handwriting in masking tape labels in the pantry. Her reading glasses on the side table. The dent in the dining room chair where she had sat every morning with coffee, bills, and her blue binder. She had left everything organized. Of course she had. Her will was in a fireproof box under her bed. The house went to Noah and me equally. Her savings, modest but carefully protected, were divided between us. She left instructions for the funeral, passwords in a sealed envelope, recipes in a red notebook, and a letter for each of us. Noah's letter made him cry in the hallway for 20 minutes, mine was 2 pages. At the bottom, in her sharp, slanted handwriting, she wrote, Emma, if ever comes back, do not waste your breath proving your pain. Open the blue binder. Then open the gray envelope behind it. I loved you before you understood what love cost. Use what I saved. I read that line 7 times. If he ever comes back. Not when. If. I wanted to believe he would not. 6 weeks after we buried her, Richard knocked on the door. The first thing I felt was not anger. It was confusion. The mind does strange things with ghosts who are still alive. For a second, I saw the father from before the funeral. The man who used to lift me onto his shoulders at the county fair. The man who made pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, the man who called my mother Sunshine and danced with her in the kitchen. Then he opened his mouth. I heard Ruth left the house to you kids, he said. I think we need to talk about what's fair. Behind me, Noah slowly stood up from the dining room table. I gripped the doorframe. What did you say? Richard sighed like I was being difficult already. Emma, don't start. I know this is emotional, but that house was part of your mother's family life. I was Sarah's husband. I lost her too. I have rights. Noah let out a laugh that had no humor in it. Rights? Richard looked past me at him. Noah, he said softly. Look at you. You're grown. Noah stared at him. Yeah, that happens when 18 years pass. Richard flinched, but only for a moment. Then his eyes moved again, scanning the hallway, the living room, the staircase, the crown molding Grandma had saved 3 years to repair. He looked at our home the way buyers look at property. Not the way fathers look at the place where their children survived. A woman stepped out from behind him. I had not noticed her at first. She was tall, blonde, polished, maybe 45, with a camel coat and a leather handbag that probably cost more than my first car. Her mouth curved in a sympathetic smile that did not reach her eyes. I'm Vanessa, she said. Richard's wife. Wife. The word landed somewhere deep and cold. Noah's jaw tightened. Richard cleared his throat. I thought it would be better if she came. She understands real estate. She can keep this practical. Vanessa tilted her head. We're not here to hurt anyone, she said. But grief can make young people cling to things they can't maintain. A house like this has taxes, insurance, repairs. It may be smarter to sell before it becomes a burden. A burden a grandma had carried us for 18 years in that house. She had worked with swollen hands, skipped medicine once until I caught her, patched our lives together one grocery receipt at a time. And this woman, standing on the porch in boots that had never stepped over a sleeping child during a fever, called it a burden. I should have slammed the door. Instead, he heard Grandma's voice. Do not waste your breath proving your pain. I stepped aside, come in. Noah's eyes snapped to mine. Emma. It's fine, I said, though nothing in me felt fine. Let them talk. Richard entered like he had been invited back into ownership. Vanessa followed, glancing at the family photos on the wall. Her eyes paused on one of Grandma holding me and Noah at my law school graduation. She did well for herself, Vanessa said. Noah's voice came low. She did well for us. We sat in the living room. Richard chose Grandma's chair. That nearly broke me. Noah saw it and moved before I did. He walked across the room and stood in front of the chair. Not there. Richard blinked. What? That was hers. Sit somewhere else. Vanessa gave a soft laugh. It's just a chair. Noah did not look at her. Not to us. For a moment, Richard looked like he might argue. Then he stood and moved to the couch. Vanessa sat beside him, crossing her legs, surveying the room like she was staging it for a listing. Richard began with a speech. He had fallen apart after Mom died. He had been too young. Too overwhelmed. Grandma Ruth had taken over. He had always intended to reconnect, but time got away from him. He had made mistakes, yes, but no one was perfect. He had recently faced health issues, business losses, and unexpected financial pressure. He was not asking for charity. He was asking for recognition. What kind of recognition? I asked. His eyes flicked to Vanessa. She answered. Either a negotiated family settlement or a sale of the house with an equitable distribution. Noah leaned forward. You mean money? Richard's face hardened. I mean fairness. That word did something to me. Fairness was Grandma Ruth at 67 standing in line at the pharmacy with coupons because Noah's inhaler was $80 after insurance. Fairness was me working 30 hours a week in college while other students went in spring break. Fairness was a 7-year-old girl waiting by a window for a father who never came back. He walked to the dining room and picked up the blue binder. When I returned, Richard's expression changed. He recognized it. That was the first twist of the knife. Not that Heck knew what was inside. That he knew enough to be afraid. I placed it on the coffee table. What is that? Vanessa asked. The truth, I said. Richard scoffed. Emma, don't be dramatic. I opened the binder. The first section held the will. Clean. Notarized. Current. Grandma Ruth had left the house solely to Noah and me, with no provision for Richard Whitaker or any spouse, creditor, associate, or claimant connected to him. Vanessa reached for it. I moved it out of her reach. "I'm an attorney," I said. "You can look when I'm done." Her smile thinned. Richard leaned back. "It will can be contested." "Yes," I said. "Badly." I turned to the second section. Child support orders. Payment records. Missed payment notices. Returned mail. Employer information. Wage withholding attempts. Certified letters. Court dates. Arrears calculations. A copy of the $84 check. I slid that page toward him. His face went red. Noah stared at the check, then at Richard. "You sent $84? Richard shifted. "I sent what I could." Grandma had written in blue ink beneath the copy, milk, asthma refill, Emma school shoes. Short $163 that week. My throat tightened. Vanessa uncrossed her legs. "This I sold history." "No," I said. "This is a financial record." I turned more pages. Grandma had kept spreadsheets before most people her age knew what spreadsheets were. Every missed payment. Every cost she covered. Every year. Medical care. School fees. Clothes, utilities, rent before the house. Food. Transportation. Counseling after mom's death. College application fees. Bar exam fee she insisted on paying even when I begged her not to. At the bottom of one summary page, she had written a number. $312,418.76. That did not include interest. It did not include emotional labor. It did not include birthdays, nightmares, science fairs, ear visits, college move-in days, or the thousand invisible things that make a childhood stand upright. "That number is ridiculous," Richard muttered. Noah's voice cracked. "That number is low." Richard looked at him, and for one second I thought maybe shame would finally dow how love had not. But Vanessa touched his arm. "We are not here to be attacked," she said. Richard suffered too. I smiled. I could not help it. Suffering is not a mortgage payment. Richard stood. "I am still your father." Noah stood too. "No. You are a man who knows our birthdays because they're probably in some court file." Richard stepped toward him. I moved between them. "Sit down," I said. Maybe it was my voice. Maybe it was the fact that I sounded exactly like Grandma Ruth when she was done being polite. Richard sat. I opened the third section. And that was when everything in the room shifted. Because Grandma had not just kept records of what Richard failed to pay. She had kept records of what he took. There were insurance documents from after my mother's death. Letters from the life insurance company. A beneficiary dispute. Copisoft forms. A handwritten note from my grandmother's attorney. When Mom died, she had asthma life insurance policy through her job at a children's hospital. Not huge, $150,000. Enough to keep 2 children stable if the surviving parent had any intention of raising them. The original beneficiary had been Richard. But 2 months before the accident, Mom had filed a change request naming me and Noah as primary beneficiaries, with Grandma Ruth as custodian until we turned 18. The change had been submitted. Then challenged. Then delayed. Then somehow, after Richard left, settled. I had never known this. I looked up. Richard's face had gone gray. Vanessa looked at him. "Rich." I pulled out the copied settlement agreement Grandma had marked with a sticky note. Richard had taken $92,000 from the insurance settlement. He had signed a document promising to place $50,000 into custodial accounts for me and Noah. He never did. Instead, for months after leaving us, he bought into a real estate flipping business in Florida. Grandma had found out 2 years later. She had sued. The case had settled quietly. Richard agreed to repay a portion over time. He made 3 payments. Then disappeared again. Noah whispered, "He took Mom's money?" The room went silent. That was worse than abandonment. Worse than missed birthdays. Worse than never calling. He had taken the last financial protection our mother left us and used it to build another life. Richard wiped his mouth with his hand. I was drowning. Noah stared at him. "So you pushed us under?" Vanessa stood slowly. "Richard, what is this?" He snapped at her. "Sit down." She did not. I turned one more page. This one I had not seen before. It was a sealed gray envelope tucked into the back pocket, the one Grandma mentioned in her letter. I had not opened it yet because some part of me had been afraid to know what else she had carried alone. My name was written across the front. "Emma, only when he lies." I looked at Richard. Then I opened it. Inside was a letter, achy, and a small flash drive taped to an index card. The letter was short. "Sweetheart, if he comes for the house, he is not desperate. He is repeating himself." The key is for the safe deposit box at Fifth Third Bank. The flash drive has my statement and copies of the final trust documents. The house is protected. You and Noah are protected. But if you want to be free, make him say the truth where someone else can hear it. I looked up. Richard was breathing hard. Vanessa reached for her purse. I think we should leave. No, Richard said. We can still resolve this. There is nothing to resolve, I said. His eyes narrowed. You always were Ruth's little soldier. Noah took a step forward. I put a hand out. Richard looked at me then, really looked, and whatever mask he had brought with him finally slipped. You think you're better than me because you got a law degree, he said. You have no idea what it was like. Your mother died and everyone looked at me like I was supposed to just perform. Feed you. Bathe you. Comfort you. Work. Pay bills. Be strong. Ruth judged me from day one. She showed up on day one, I said. He pointed toward the walls. She poisoned you against me in my own family's home. Noah laughed again, sharper this time. Your family's home? You mean the house you never slept in, never paid for, and didn't know existed until Grandma died? Vanessa's expression changed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Richard did not. He turned it on me. You are going to regret humiliating me. I know judges. I know brokers. I know people in this city. You think a little legal aid attorney scares me? I will tie this house up so long you'll beg me to take a settlement. Then he smiled. And in that smile, I saw exactly the man Grandma Ruth had prepared me for. Not a broken father. A creditor. A collector. A man who came back to the graveyard of his own choices and brought a shovel. I closed the binder. Then I guess we'll see you in court. Richard left without saying goodbye. Vanessa paused at the door. She looked back at the blue binder, then at me. How much of that is true, she asked quietly. All of it. Something flickered behind her eyes of fear, maybe. Or recognition. Then she followed him out. Noah and I stood in the living room long after their car pulled away. Finally, he said, did Grandma know this would happen? I looked at the gray envelope in my hand. She didn't know. I swallowed. She planned. Richard filed the petition 9 days later. He claimed undue influence. He claimed Grandma Ruth had turned us against him. He claimed she had used assets connected to my mother's death to purchase the house. He claimed he was a grieving widower pushed out by a controlling mother-in-law who wanted custody, money, and revenge. He claimed he had always tried to remain in our lives, but Grandma had blocked him. When I read the filing, my hands went numb. Not because I believed any of it. Because lies look different when someone pays a lawyer to format them. Noah found me in the kitchen at 2:14 a.m., sitting with the petition spread across the table and Grandma's blue binder beside it. You need sleep, he said. I need a time machine and a baseball bat. Grandma would not approve of the bat. She'd understand the impulse. He sat across from me. Noah had grown into a quiet kind of handsome, with tired eyes and me mother's soft mouth. When he was little, I used to think protecting him meant standing between him and pain. As adults, I had learned the harder truth, sometimes you cannot stop the pain. You can only stand beside someone while it tells the story. Do you remember him? I asked. He looked down at his hands. Not really. That might be a blessing. No, he said. It's worse sometimes. You lost a father. I lost the idea of one. That sentence stayed in the room with us. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. We're going to win. He nodded. I know. But the next week, winning became more complicated. Richard did not just file in court. Hester did performing. First came a Facebook post from an account I had not known existed. A black and white photo of my mother, young and laughing, with a caption about grief, parental alienation, and a father, praying for reconciliation after being erased from his children's lives by a bitter grandmother, manipulation, and inheritance greed. Then strangers began messaging me. How could you keep a father from his children? Shame on you. Your grandmother sounds like a narcissist. A house is not worth destroying, family. One message said, your mom would be disgusted. That one made me throw up. Noah wanted to respond publicly. I told him no. Silence looks guilty, he said. Silence looks disciplined. I hate disciplined. So do I. At work, I helped women file protection orders while my own family was being smeared online. I sat across from mothers with bruised wrists, eviction notices, and babies sleeping against their chests, and I tried not to think about my grandmother standing in the same system decades earlier, trying to make a vanished man visible. My supervisor, Denise, noticed before I told her. Denise was 56, a former prosecutor turned legal aid director, with silver braids and a stare that could stop a man mid-lie. She read Richard's petition in silence. When she finished, she removed her glasses. Your father is not here for love. No, Emma. Listen. Men like this come back when someone told them no somewhere else. Find the pressure point. What do you mean? Why now? Why exactly 6 weeks after Ruth died? Who told him? Who benefits? Who is pushing him? I thought of Vanessa's polished smile. Her real estate language. Her quick calculation of the house as an asset. I thought of Richard's coat, expensive from far away and worn out up close. I thought Ophi's threat. I know people. Money, I said. Denise nodded. Usually. That night, I used the key from the gray envelope. The safe deposit box was at a bank downtown. Grandma had opened it 14 years earlier and updated the access 3 months before she died. Inside were more documents, a small velvet pouch with Mom's wedding ring, and another envelope labeled, "Not anger." Evidence. I almost laughed. Grandma Ruth even organized revenge like a librarian. Inside were the final trust documents. The house was not simply left to us in her will. 3 years before her death, Grandma had transferred it into the Ruth Whitaker Family Trust, naming Noah and me as equal beneficiaries. The will only confirmed what the trust had already done. Richard could contest the will all he wanted. The house was outside probate. That was the first major turn. I sat in the bank's private viewing room, staring at the document until the words blurred. Protected. She had protected it. She had protected us, but there was more. A sworn statement from Grandma described the insurance dispute after Mom's death. Copies of court records showed Richard's settlement obligations. A private investigator's report from 11 years earlier listed addresses, businesses, aliases, and unpaid judgments. Grandma had stopped chasing him, yes. But she had not stopped knowing exactly who he was. At the bottom of the box was the flash drive. I did not watch it at the bank. I waited until Noah came home. We sat at the dining room table where Grandma had balanced our whole life in yellow legal pads. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The video opened on Grandma Ruth sitting in her bedroom, wearing her blue cardigan. She looked thinner than I wanted to remember, but her eyes were bright and steady. "Emma." "Noah," she said. Noah made a sound and covered his mouth. I paused the video. "You okay?" "No, want me to stop?" "No," I pressed play. "If you are watching this, he came back or you found this after I lost the argument with my own heart. Either way, I need you to hear me say this out loud. Your father did not leave because you were difficult. He did not leave because grief broke him beyond repair. Grief breaks everyone. He left because responsibility asked him to become bigger, and he chose to become smaller." Tears slid down Noah's face. Grandma continued. "I was angry for many years. I will not lie about that. But anger did not raise you. Love did. Schedules did. Paperwork did. Oatmeal did. Doctor visits did. Emma reading to Noah when she was too young to have toe brave did. Noah rubbing my hands when the arthritis got bad did. We raised each other." I put my hand over my mouth. "There is something else," she said. "Richard took more than money. After Sarah died, he used the confusion to open credit in Emma's name. I did not tell you because I had it sealed and corrected before you turned 18. I did not want you carrying one more wound. But the documents are here. If he is threatening you, use them." The room dropped away. Noah turned to me. "What?" I could not speak. Grandma's voice continued, gentle but firm. "I made a police report. I kept the credit bureau letters. I kept the settlement. He signed an admission without calling it one. That is in the box. He will deny it. Let him. The truth has better handwriting." I stood so fast the chair scraped backward. Credit in my name. My name. I had spent years thinking Richard had abandoned us and stolen money meant to care for us. But he had also used me. Not as a daughter. As a number. A clean social security number attached to a child too young to fight back. Noah paused the video. His face had gone white. "Emma." I walked to the sink, gripped the edge, and tried to breathe. There are kinds of anger that burn hot and wild. This was not that. This was cold. Precise. It moved through me like a blade being sharpened. Grandma had fixed it. She had saved me from discovering it when I applied for student loans or rented my first apartment. She had cleaned up a crime I never knew existed and still made dinner that night. Still helped with homework. Still smiled at school plays. Still carried all that knowledge so I could be a child for a little longer. Noah came up behind me. "He doesn't get the house," he said. I turned. For the first time, his grief looked like mine. "No," I said. "He doesn't get to keep this story either." We hired a probate litigator named Marjorie Bell, though she told me after reading the documents that Grandma had made her job almost offensively easy. Marjorie was in her 60s, sharp as broken glass, with a voice so calm it made aggressive men nervous. At the first hearing, Richard arrived in a charcoal suit with Vanessa beside him and a lawyer named Kent Parlow, who had the glossy confidence of a man who billed in 6-minute increments and rounded up. Richard hugged people in the hallway. He actually hugged people. A cousin on my mother's side who had not seen him in 18 years. An old neighbor. A woman from grandma's church who looked too stunned to push him away. He played sorrow beautifully. Hand to chest. Eyes wet. Voice low. I just want my family back, I heard him say. Noah's hand curled into a fist. I touched his wrist. Not here. Inside the courtroom, Kent argued that grandma had isolated us, poisoned us, and manipulated estate planning to punish a grieving widower. He suggested the trust should be examined for undue influence. He said Richard had been prevented from exercising fatherhood. I wrote that phrase in my notebook. Prevented from exercising fatherhood. Beside it, I wrote, by Florida? By silence? By $84? When it was our turn, Marjorie stood. Your Honor, she said, this petition is not merely weak. It is historically dishonest. Kent objected. The judge, a tired-looking woman named Judge Alvarez, looked over her glasses. Ms. Bell, choose your words carefully. I did, Marjorie said. Then she laid out the trust. The house was not part of probate. The transfer was valid. Grandma had been evaluated by her physician 2 weeks before signing. 2 independent witnesses signed affidavits. The attorney who drafted it had recorded notes confirming Grandma's reasons. Judge Alvarez flipped through the documents. Richard's confidence began to crack. Vanessa whispered something to him. Then Marjorie introduced the support records. The insurance settlement. The unpaid obligations. The past court orders. Kent stood again. Your Honor, these are inflammatory and largely irrelevant to the narrow estate question. Marjorie smiled. They are relevant because Mr. Whitaker's petition rests on the claim that he was a devoted father wrongfully alienated from his children. The record shows he was not alienated. He was absent, delinquent, and repeatedly notified. Judge Alvarez allowed it. Richard stared at the table. That should have ended things. It did not. Because desperate men do not always retreat when exposed. Sometimes they escalate. Outside the courtroom, Richard cornered me near the elevators while Noah was in the restroom and Marjorie was speaking with the clerk. His face was no longer sad. It was ugly. You think that little performance changes anything, he said. Don't talk tone without your lawyer. I gave you life. No. Mom did. You gave me bad credit. His eyes flashed. So Ruth told you. She documented you. He stepped closer. You have no idea what she was. She controlled everything. Sarah was going to leave me before she died. Ruth hated me. She wanted those kids and that money. I laughed once. Those kids? His mouth tightened. You know what I mean. Yes, I said. I do. He lowered his voice. If you push the credit thing, I will make sure Noah loses his spot in medical school. For a second, I did not understand. Then he smiled. I know people at hospitals. Boards, donors, you really want your brother dragged into a fraud story? You want headlines, future doctor raised in criminal family estate fight. My body went still. There it was, the real man. No grief. No fatherhood. No remorse. Just leverage. I looked past his shoulder and saw Vanessa standing near the vending machines. She had heard him. Richard did not know that. Vanessa's face was unreadable. Before I could answer, Noah came out of the restroom. Richard stepped back instantly, mask returning. Just asking your sister to think about family, he said. Noah looked at my face. What did he say? Enough, I said. That night, I expected another sleepless spiral. Instead, at 8:37 p.m., my phone rang from a blocked number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. A woman's voice said, "This is Vanessa. Don't hang up." I said nothing. I did not know about the insurance. Or the credit. I knew he was behind on some old support, but he told me your grandmother kept moving you and blocking him. She kept us in the same house for 18 years. I know that now. Her voice sounded different without the showroom polish. Smaller. Tired. Why are you calling? There was a pause. Because Richard is not broke because of business losses. I sat up. Vanessa exhaled, he borrowed against our house. Then my retirement account. Then my daughter's college fund. He said it was temporary. He said a deal was closing. Last month I found out there is no deal. I closed my eyes. Denise's voice returned. Find the pressure point. Vanessa continued. He came after Ruth's house because he promised someone money by the end of the month. I thought he had a moral claim. I let myself believe it because I needed there to be a solution that did not make me a fool. Her voice broke on the last word. I'm sorry, she said. I did not absolve her. Not then. Maybe not ever. She had walked into my grandmother's house and called our life a burden. But I understood something in her voice. The sound of a woman realizing she had been standing beside the fire, not outside it. Do you have proof? I asked. Yes. Send it to your lawyer. I don't have one yet. Get one. Emma. It was the first time she had said my name without condescension. He has another daughter. I went cold. What? Not with me. Before me. After your mother died a woman in Tampa. The girl is 16. He owes them too. I gripped the phone. Does he see her? Vanessa gave a humorless laugh. What do you think? The second major turn had arrived quietly, through a phone line, in the voice of the woman I had wanted to hate. Richard had not abandoned one family. He had made abandonment a pattern. Vanessa sent documents the next morning. Loan statements. Emails. Texts. A screenshot of Richard telling a lender he had inherited interest in a Columbus property and expected liquidation soon. Another message said, my kids are emotional but they'll settle. They owe me after what their grandmother did. I stared at that line until the words stopped looking like words. They owe me. Noah read it once and walked outside in the rain without a coat. I found him sitting on the back steps, soaked, staring at the yard where Grandma used to grow tomatoes. He has another kid, he said. Yes. He left her too. Yes. He rubbed both hands over his face. What is wrong with him? I sat beside him. Something we are not responsible for fixing. The rain ran down his hair. He looked 21 and 3 at the same time. Do you ever wonder what we would have been like if Mom lived? Every day, I thought. But I said, sometimes. I think you would laugh more. That hurt because it was probably true. I laugh. At legal arguments and Grandma's church gossip. That counts. He leaned his head on my shoulder. I miss her. Mom, both. We sat in the rain until neither of us could tell what was weather and what was grief. The next hearing was supposed to be a status conference. It became the beginning of Richard's collapse. Marjorie filed a motion to dismiss his petition and requested sanctions for bad faith claims. She attached the trust documents, support records, and messages Vanessa had provided through her new attorney. The Tampa mother, a woman named Alicia Grant, submitted an affidavit stating Richard owed years of unpaid support for her daughter, Lily. She also stated he had recently contacted her, promising payment after resolving an inheritance dispute with his older children. Older children. That phrase made me feel ancient. Richard's lawyer tried to withdraw. Judge Alvarez denied the immediate withdrawal until after the hearing. Richard arrived alone. No Vanessa. No polished coat. No performance in the hallway. He looked at me once, then looked away. For the first time in 18 years, he seemed afraid of me. Not because I was cruel. Because I was prepared. Judge Alvarez dismissed his claim against the house. She stated clearly that the property belonged to the trust beneficiaries, Noah and me. She warned Richard that further attempts to cloud the title could result in sanctions. Then she addressed the statements he had made in his petition. Mr. Whitaker, she said, this court is not a theater for rewriting parental history. Richard's face turned crimson. Kent stared at the table like he wanted to melt into it. Marjorie then requested referral of the unpaid support and settlement records to the appropriate enforcement agencies. She did not mention the credit fraud in open court, not yet. That was strategy. That was the final blade still sheathed. Judge Alvarez granted part off the request and scheduled a separate proceeding regarding fees. Outside the courtroom, Richard did not come near us. But 2 days later, he posted again. This time he called me a bitter attorney using technicalities to punish a grieving father. He said Grandma Ruth had brainwashed us. He said he would never stop fighting for the truth. That was when I stopped protecting him from himself. I called Marjorie. I want the credit file. She was silent for a moment. Are you sure? No, that is an honest answer. But Grandma said make him say the truth where someone else can hear it. Marjorie understood. We did not file criminal charges immediately. Instead, we filed a civil claim tied to the old identity theft settlement and his fraudulent representations in the estate petition. We included enough evidence to make denial dangerous. We also sent his attorney a demand, public retraction, dismissal with prejudice of all claims, reimbursement of legal fees, agreement to a revived payment schedule toward the old child support and insurance obligations, and a signed statement that he had not been prevented from seeing us. Noah read the demand and said, that's it. I looked at him. That is a lot. No, I mean he gets to sign paper and walk away? I understood the anger. I felt it too. There is a fantasy in pain where the person who caused it is destroyed completely. Publicly. Beautifully. You imagine them losing everything because they took so much from you. But Grandma Ruth had taught me the difference between justice and appetite. I don't need him destroyed, I said. I need him unable to steal the truth again. Noah looked toward the living room, where Grandma's chair still sat empty. She would make him pay. She is. How? I touched the blue binder. She made sure we could live without becoming him. The mediation happened on a cold Monday in January. Richard came with a new lawyer. A cheaper one. His face looked older, not softer. Vanessa had filed for legal separation. Alicia had filed for support enforcement in Florida. The lender from his messages was suing him. His real estate license was under review because he had represented a non-existent property interest in writing. Consequences had found his forwarding address. We sat in a conference room with beige walls and bad coffee. Marjorie was beside me. Noah sat on my other side, wearing the navy sweater Grandma had bought him for his medical school interview. Richard looked at the sweater. Your grandmother picked that, didn't she? Noah said nothing. Richard swallowed. I remember she liked navy. I almost laughed. He remembered a color. After 18 years, he brought us a color like an offering. The mediator, a retired judge, explained the process. Richard's lawyer tried to argue for confidentiality and mutual non-disparagement. Marjorie let him speak. Then she opened our folder. Not the blue binder. A copy. Grandma's original stayed home. Marjorie laid out the evidence piece by piece. The trust. The false statements. The insurance settlement. The missed support. The messages, the identity theft records, including Richard's signature on the old settlement agreement acknowledging unauthorized financial activity involving a minor dependent's identifying information. Richard closed his eyes. His lawyer whispered, "You told Medhat was resolved." It was, Richard muttered. Marjorie heard him. Resolved is not erased. Then the mediator asked Richard the question Grandma had wanted someone else to hear. Mr. Whitaker, were you prevented by Ruth Whitaker from contacting your children? Richard stared at the table. His lawyer touched his arm. The room was so quiet I could hear the heater ticking. Finally, Richard said, no, the word was small. Not enough. But true, the mediator continued. Were you aware of the Columbus address where your children lived? Yes. Were you under any court order prohibiting contact? No. Did you fail to make required support payments? Richard's jaw worked. Yes. Noah looked down. I did not. The mediator looked at the next page. Did you receive funds connected to Sarah Whitaker's life insurance settlement that were intended, at least in part, for the benefit of Emma and Noah Whitaker? Richard whispered, yes. And did you fulfill the custodial account obligation? No, the word cracked. Not because of remorse, I think. Because he knew each answer built a wall he could not climb. Then came the last question. Did you, after Sarah Whitaker's death, use Emma Whitaker's identifying information in connection with credit applications or accounts? Richard's lawyer objected to the wording. Marjorie did not blink. The mediator rephrased. Did you sign the 2009 settlement agreement concerning unauthorized financial activity involving your minor daughter's information? Richard's face twisted. He looked at me then. For a second, I saw the hallway. Suitcases. Cologne. The elevator closing. The child I had been standing barefoot in the dark. I was desperate, he said. I heard Grandma's voice. People tell stories about themselves. Paper tells the truth. I leaned forward. No, I said. You were willing. His eyes filled with tears. Maybe real. Maybe not. For once, I did not care. Richard signed. He signed the dismissal. He signed the retraction. He signed the payment agreement. He signed a sworn statement admitting Grandma Ruth had not alienated us, hidden us, or stolen from him. He agreed to pay our legal fees through the sale of a car and wage garnishment. He agreed not to contact Noah or me except in writing through counsel for 2 years. Then Marjorie slid one more document across the table. Richard frowned. What is this? Our lease allowing the public retraction to name Ruth Whitaker directly and clear the accusations you made against her. He shook his head. I already agreed to retract. No, I said. You agreed to protect yourself. This protects her. His mouth tightened. She's dead. Noah finally looked up. And somehow still more present than you. Richard stared at him. That one landed. Maybe because Noah had always been the softer child. The one Richard might have imagined he could still reach. But Noah's face held no hatred. Just distance. Final, quiet distance. Richard signed. The public retraction went up 2 days later. It was not dramatic. No viral confession video. No tearful apology. Just a written statement admitting that his prior claims about Grandma Ruth were false, that she had raised us with stability and care, that he had not been prevented from contacting us, and that the house legally and morally belonged to her grandchildren. Few apologized. One woman from Grandma's church mailed me a card with shaky handwriting. I should have known Ruth better than to doubt her. I placed it beside Grandma's photo. Not every victory feels loud. Some feel like a room finally being cleaned after years off smoke. But the biggest turn came 3 months later, when a letter arrived from Vanessa. Inside was a cashier's check for $11,000 and a note. Richard used part of my daughter's college fund while promising me your grandmother's house would repay it. My attorney recovered some funds. This portion came from money traceable to the loan he obtained using your house as a claimed asset. It belongs with what Ruth protected. I am sorry for the way I entered your home. I mistook his need for injustice. I mistook your grief for greed. I will not ask forgiveness. I only wanted to return what I could. Noah, read it twice. What do we do with it? I knew before he finished asking. Grandma Ruth had not left us a house so we could spend the rest of our lives guarding it from ghosts. She had left us a foundation. Not the legal kind, at least not yet. A real one. Wood, brick, memory, discipline, soup, receipts, and a porch light. We used Vanessa's check, part of Grandma's savings, and donations from people who had known her to open the front rooms of the house 2 Saturdays a month. We called it the Ruth House. Noah wanted to add Mom's name too, but I hesitated. Not because she mattered less, because I was afraid to touch the wound. Then one night, I dreamed of my mother in the kitchen. She was young, wearing the yellow sweater from my favorite photo, and she was laughing at something Grandma said. When I woke up, I knew. We changed the name. The Sarah Ruth House. Because one woman gave us life, and the other taught us how to survive it. At first, it was just me helping single parents understand child support forms at the dining room table. Noah checked blood pressure in the living room and gave basic health guidance with the seriousness of a man twice his age. Denise came once a month to help with protective order questions. Marjorie gave 3 free workshops and terrified everyone into organizing their documents. The first Saturday, 4 women came. One brought a toddler with glitter shoes. One brought a grocery bag full of unopened mail. One sat in her car for 20 minutes before I walked out with coffee and said, "You didn't have to come in until you're ready." She cried before she opened the door. By summer, we had volunteers. By fall, a local clinic donated supplies. By winter, our tired accountant offered budgeting sessions. We fixed the old sunroom and turned it into a children's corner with books, crayons, and a rug soft enough for babies to crawl on. Every time someone asked why the house existed, I gave the simple answer. Because my grandmother kept receipts. But the real answer was longer. Because my mother died. Because my father left. Because the court could order support but not character. Because a 62-year-old woman decided 2 children were not disposable. Because love, when it is serious, becomes structure. One afternoon, a young mother named Kayla came in with a 6-year-old boy who refused to let go of her sleeve. She was embarrassed before she even sat down. "I don't want to go after his father," she said, "I don't want drama." I had heard that sentence so many times. Women said it when they were tired. When they were scared. When they had been convinced that asking for fairness made them greedy. I slid a box of tissues closer. "Requesting what your child is owed is not drama," I said. "It is refusing to carry alone what you did not create alone." She started crying then, quietly, angrily. Her son crawled under the table and sat by her feet. For a moment, I saw myself in him. Small. Listening. Learning what adults refused to say. After she left, I went upstairs to Grandma's room. We had kept it mostly the same. Her quilt. Her books. Her blue cardigan folded over the chair. The original binder sat in the desk now, not hidden, not worshipped, just present. I opened it to the page with the $84 check. For years, that page had made me furious. Now it made me focused. Richard mailed one more letter near Thanksgiving. No return address, but I knew his handwriting from the old court records. I almost threw it away. Noah said, "Open it or don't. But don't let it sit there like a bomb." So I opened it. There was no demand. No threat. No claim. Just 4 lines. I saw the article about the Sarah Ruth house. "Your grandmother would be proud. Your mother would too. I do not expect a response. I am sorry I came back as a bill instead of a father." I read items. Then again. I waited for satisfaction. It did not come. I waited for rage. That did not come either. What came was something quieter and stranger. Grief for what had never existed. Because that is the thing people do not understand about absent parents. You do not only mourn what they did. You mourn every version of them your heart invented to survive. The father who would knock on the door with flowers and a shaking apology. The father who would say, "I was wrong, and you were always worth staying for." The father who would sit at the kitchen table and listen until every abandoned year had been named. Richard was not that father. Maybe he never could have been. I folded the letter and placed it in the binder, not with the evidence, but in a new section. Grandma would have labeled it something practical. I labeled it "Hafter." "Noah found me there, are you going to answer?" "Not today." "Ever?" "I don't know." He nodded. "That feels healthy and annoying." I laughed. A real laugh. He smiled. "There she is." At Christmas, we hosted dinner at the house for volunteers, clients who had become friends, and a few neighbors who still remembered Grandma Ruth yelling at squirrels in the backyard. Noah cooked too much. Denise brought sweet potato pie and Marjorie brought wine and legal gossip. Children ran through the hallway in socks. Someone spilled juice on the rug, and for a second I almost heard Grandma say, "That's why we don't buy white furniture." After dinner, Noah stood in the doorway between the dining room and living room, watching everyone. "What?" I asked. He shook his head, "Nothing." "You're doing the face." "What face?" I'm about to say something emotional but want to pretend I'm not face. He rolled his eyes. Then he looked at Grandma's chair. "I used to think this house was where we got left," he said. "Now it feels like where people come before they fall all the way down." I looked around. At the children coloring in the sunroom. At Kayla laughing with another mother near the coffee pot. At Denise explaining something with her hands. At Marjorie telling a teenager that no, a text message absolutely could matter in court. At my brother, who had lost the idea of a father and become the kind of man who stayed anyway. "Grandma did that," I said. "No," Noah said. "She started it. We're doing it." That night, after everyone left, I stood on the porch and looked at the street. The yellow light still worked. For 18 years, I had thought of that light as something Grandma left on for us. Now I understood it differently. It had been a warning too. A declaration. This house is occupied. These children are not abandoned. Someone is waiting. Someone is watching. Someone kept the receipts. My father returned looking for wounded children he could shame into giving him a piece of the only home they had left. He did not find them. He found a lawyer with her grandmother's handwriting in her bones. He found a medical student who had learned tenderness from the woman his father dismissed. He found a house transferred, protected, and stronger than his lies. He found women he had never met walking through the front door with folders in their hands because Ruth Whitaker's love had outlived her body and become a place. Richard came back for inheritance. He became evidence. And Grandma Ruth, who never had much money, left behind something rarer than wealth. She left 2 whole human beings. She left a table where frightened people could learn their rights. She left a porch light for anyone who had ever been told that asking for what they were owed made them selfish. She left a blue binder thick enough to hold the truth. For a long time, I believed family was blood. Then I believed family was who stayed. Now I think family is also who prepares you to stand when they can't stay forever. My mother gave me my first home. My grandmother gave me my second. And my father, in the cruelest way, gave me my life's work. Sometimes the person who abandons you thinks the story ends at the door they closed. They are wrong. Sometimes that door becomes the entrance to something they never deserve to enter again. And sometimes the child left crying in the hallway grows up, opens the file, turns on the porch light, and lets the truth answer for her.